My name is Chris Haberberger, and I am a second-year pre-theologian for the Diocese of Austin. Recently in prayer I've had a quote by Pope Benedict that's been floating around in my head. It's a super simple sentence. He says, "The one who has hope lives differently." And I've been thinking about that and praying about that. What does that mean, that the one who has hope lives differently? And in the document that Pope Benedict was writing when he said that, he says that the one who has hope, the Christian who has hope, lives differently because they know that they have a future. And so because they know that they have a future, the future is positively guaranteed. They have a freedom to live the present. And I think that ties in so neatly with the readings that we have this week. Abram, in our first reading where we pick up, he's left everything on promises of faith and promises of hope, promises of a future from God. He's left his country, his father's house in Ur of the Chaldees, and gone to some random place that the Lord has pointed out to him. But now he's being given a covenant. He's being promised the land in which he's going to live, and his family's going to be live in a great nation that God has promised will come from him. And even further, it allows him a freedom to be able to live the present, to be able to move forward into those promises and living into the promises that God's made for him, made with him. And in a certain way, that same thing kind of picks up in our gospel. When Jesus is taking Peter, James, and John up the mountain for the transfiguration, when Jesus is revealed in all of his glory, it's giving Peter, James, and John this foretaste of what's going to come, of him and his glory. It's his future, it's Jesus' future, but it's also their future. In a certain way, it's a preview of what their future is going to be after the Passion. After this time that's going to try them so hard and so difficultly, so in such a hard way, that they're going to have hope. And this is a guarantee of that future for them, that there is a resurrection that comes after the crucifixion. In a certain way, that's kind of where we fall. At least that's what I've kind of come to in prayer. We find ourselves as baptized Christians. We live in the church. And so we know, maybe in our heart, maybe in our head, maybe both, we know that Jesus Christ died for our sins, was in the tomb for 3 days, rose again, and now is ascended back to the Father where he sits at his right hand. And because he's there, he's opened the gates of heaven for us, and we have a future. Like Pope Benedict says, the one who has hope lives differently because he knows that he has a future and he has a freedom to live in his present. But that requires something of us, It requires that we live in our present. And that's what's kind of so interesting, is that here in our present, like St. Paul says, it kind of doesn't make sense. We're citizens of heaven, but we live and we work in the kingdom of man for a short time. And while we're here, while we're on this earthly pilgrimage, we find something restless in our hearts. And so maybe we try to fill it, I know I do, we try to fill it with being wealthy, having power, being honored, or feeling pleasure, whether through food or through friendships or through Netflix, all of these different things. We try to fill it with all these. But nothing really satisfies. Nothing really seems to just fill that ache, that restlessness in our heart. And it's because that's what Paul says, we're citizens of heaven. Our hope is in a lot of ways just like Peter, James, and John on the mountain. Our hope is in Jesus glorified. In a prayer called the Litany of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, there's one line that has also really been fascinating me lately in prayer. And the line is, "Heart of Jesus, desire of the everlasting hills, have mercy on us." And that's just that idea of the desire of the everlasting hills. It's Jesus who is our hope, that he is our means to heaven. And our heavenly homeland is that land of the everlasting hills. It's what we're made for, it's what we're meant for. We live in the earth now, we live in this present age, but we're made for something greater. But it's through Jesus that we get there. And so the Christian life and our Lenten journey is really about converting our hearts, converting our minds, changing the actions, changing all of these things about ourselves and internal to us, so that more and more each year as we go through Lent and we go through the ups and downs of the Christian life, we can more and more come to hope in the heart of Jesus, the desire of the everlasting hills that draws us more and more into our eternal beatitude, into heaven. And that's exactly what heaven is, the everlasting hills. It's an eternal indwelling and living with the Blessed Trinity. It's a constant going further up and further into the Trinity, deeper and deeper, further and further, being completely satisfied but never exhausting the source. And so, brothers and sisters, it's such a joy this Lent to reflect on hope. I know it's uncommon in our Lenten journeys to really think about hope. A lot of times we think about penance, but Lent is really about hope too. Because as Christians, we know that Easter is going to come, and so that gives us a freedom to fully live our Lent and to fully give ourselves to the present in Lent so that we can more fully come to know Jesus, come to know the heart of Jesus, who is the desire of the everlasting hills.